All right, we're on. G'day, guys. It's Tarek here from FTI for another High Performers episode where I bring you the best performers in their field, bring in the expertise to make you guys better coaches and more impactful. And we handpick those who are performing at a world-class premium, both in Australia and also globally. So it's very exciting, and they're here to share their wisdom, their ways of coaching, and how they've, allowed their ideas to come to fruition. So it's really important that, every one of us can learn something from these great minds, these innovators that we bring on, because what we want to do is see you guys more connected, more technically minded, and obviously being able to share that with your clients. So in this particular episode, I'm really thrilled to have Vanessa and Emma on board. We've known each other for a long time, so we'll get into a bit of the story. They're both living in Australia. I think, Emma, you're an Aussie. Should I say you're an Aussie, or you're English, or maybe both? There you go. So anyway, we're fellow citizens, and really it's with my great pleasure to have them on. They've presented at often the best conferences around the globe. And that's where, a lot of coaches, of perhaps those listening and watching, have come across, both Emma and Vanessa. So without further ado, I'll introduce each now. So Vanessa, would you want to start? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, that would be great.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be on here today. A little bit about myself. It feels like it's been forever since I've been in the fitness industry, and it almost is. It's like a third of my entire life, maybe more, 2/3 of my entire life. I started coaching when I was 16 years old, like little dancers running around as I was a little dancer. And then from there, I moved really quickly into high performance, working with athletes. I did my science degree at a university. I worked in AFL in Melbourne, where I'm originally from. And then from there, I kind of worked my way through. I wasn't enjoying high performance, so I decided to become a personal trainer, as we all do in that moment. And the cool thing was, when I started working as a personal trainer, I joined up with a company called Virgin Active, and it essentially changed everything for me. And I just immersed myself in doing heaps of education. I think you mentioned Ian O'Dwyer was on last week. He was one of the first people that I learned from in the industry, like absolute legend. Chatty was my very first external course that I got taught, which was really cool. So I immersed myself into it, and then started realizing that I really had a passion for not only teaching it to my clients, but teaching it to people as well, teaching it to trainers. So I got involved with a company called PTA and PTA Global, and even for yourself, we've done a few things down in the past.
Yes.
But I started teaching certifications for them. I started teaching certifications for another company. I met Emma in my fitness journey through Virgin Active after she took over a role. I was group exercise manager, and she took over after I decided I didn't want to do that role anymore. And it's been a pretty whirlwind journey. I moved up to Sydney and started teaching and coaching a lot more group exercise and a lot more movement, and coaching at, like you said, conferences, moving around the globe, moving around Australia, and it's been fantastic. And it's just, everything's led me to here, which is pretty cool.
Excellent. I know there's intersecting paths that we'll get into in a moment, so appreciate you sharing that brief story. And Emma, what's your story?
My story. Well, a couple of my students once upon a time said that I'm a little bit like a cat because they think I've had 9 lives.
Yeah.
But I started off a little different to Vanessa. I started off different but similar, because we both have that kind of performing aspect in our background. But I wanted that wholeheartedly for many, many years. So I was in musical theatre until I was in my mid-20s. And then I was dancing and singing around the globe on cruise ships and whatnot. And I wanted to get fit to stick and stay in my costumes, because they're often quite strict about weighing you in once a week and making sure that you stay at a certain size and shape when you're a performer. And so I wanted to do that in a really sensible way. So I got into fitness by going and check out the personal trainer on my cruise ship. His name was Tom. And he taught me lots and lots of things about fitness. And been in a gym before, but I'd never really taken it very seriously. I always just thought that dancing would keep me fit enough. And he showed me this huge other world of fitness, and in particular group exercise, because I used to go to his spin classes on the cruise ship.
There you go.
And it was there that I kind of fell in love, and I think I saw this opening, this beam of light of what my future would hold, because I saw you could get up on stage, but be on a piece of exercise equipment, and you can still inflict emotion and change in people, just like I used to do when I was a performer, but in this whole other realm where I could make them fitter, more healthier humans, and be making them, more optimized in so many different ways. So I came home from that particular contract and I signed up to do my fitness qualifications. And back in the UK, I was very lucky to land my first job very early on, also with Virgin Active in the UK. And I started off as a personal trainer, fitness instructor, but I was the reverse of Vanessa, and I did not want to work one-on-one. I way preferred to work with multiple humans so I could still invoke my inner performer. And so I went down the route of group exercise, quite quickly becoming a group exercise manager and helping other group exercise managers in a regional position in London be better at constructing their timetables and understanding the ins and outs of optimizing the member performance within their gym and the retention within their gym through group exercise. And I would have stuck at that, except I had this burning desire to come to Australia since traveling the world. And so as fate would have it, I did a bit of traveling, and I very, very, it was a real blast of fate, because I couldn't guarantee a job in Australia, not as a Group X manager. But the day I called our managing director, Scott Hood at the time, or he was operations director at the time, was the day that Vanessa had quit her job. And he had previously told me it was quite impossible to get a job. There was only 4 clubs at the time, limited positions, good roles, but the fates would have it, and Vanessa kindly quit her job the day I was trying to claw my way into the country. And so I ended up
serendipity.
A handover. Yeah, such serendipity. I always felt like my home was going to be in Australia, and that was the first little turning point for me, which was that clear indication that I could stay and that I could get a job with Virgin Active, and that I didn't have to go fruit picking. A real joy. And then from there, the rest is history. I worked through Virgin Active in multiple roles, through group exercise mainly at the very beginning. But then, as Vanessa said, my passion grew for not just teaching other people, but teaching instructors. And so I became a master educator for a company called Stages Indoor Cycle, given that cycle was my baby ever since those cruise ship days. It was something I took on. And then I started creating programs for Virgin Active. Along with Vanessa, we worked on a program called The Grid. And so that's where we got to work together again really closely, because at this point she was living in Sydney and I was living in Melbourne. So we'd been pulled apart, but those winds of fate just pulled us back together again to help construct this high intensity, almost sort of not CrossFit, but that kind of style program for Virgin Active. Yeah. I actually had a little brush with FTI then as well, because I became a master trainer for kettlebells. So worked a little bit closely with Dan so I could become the trainer for kettlebells within Virgin. And then I also created their 2 cycle programs that they still hold now, and Vanessa still teaches, their rhythm cycle program and their metric cycle program that now still lives on, even though I've left Virgin. And that brings me today, which is that the last 19 months I've been out on my own consulting, working with boutique gyms and boutique spaces, working on their programs, their offerings, all the way through to their end-to-end member journey. So I have a big passion for the word and the thing of experience, and so I like to go into facilities and help them sculpt the best member experience possible, whether that's their customer service, their sales and marketing, or their product itself. And that brings us to today, and why me and Vanessa are also back together, because that experience word ties in there as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And what a legacy that you certainly have left, and no doubt you've left your mark in many places in a positive way. So I hadn't realised that Grid was your creation, or both of it.
Originally, yeah.
Amazing.
The original one, yeah.
It's changed since, but the little seed of the Grid was something that we had a little part in. So yeah, it was good.
So it's interesting that sort of intersecting, call it serendipity. I like to, rather than simply fate, but that could be one and the same. It was, I recall back in 2008, Dan and I had been working for this personal training studio, and he was virtually like the last day there, and we kind of didn't really connect much. It was sort of, he was there for a short while and had learnt a little bit about our systems there when at the personal training studio. Anyway, one night I was walking around with my kettlebell, and he happened to just be around the corner, and we got chatting, and that was a similar type of scenario, that fate where, the rest is kind of history, but then, another door opens, and, your paths cross again. And so tell us more now that you obviously both of you have a performance background, albeit, slightly differently. Perhaps one or both of you can answer, whoever wants to go first. My question is, so what was the inspiration now, with the next steps for both of you to kind of come together and bring both your expertise in your respective performance spaces, if you will?
Well, it's cool. We kind of figured this out maybe a week or two before we taught our first kind of trial course that we ran this year. Was Emma and I are similar, like the yin and the yang of performance in the way that we like to do things. And my expertise particularly is probably the science side of things and the brains behind what happens. So Emma will do the amazing performance side of things, and then I'll look at the reaction, and then I'll break down exactly what's happened inside your brain and why certain people reacted that way and why other people didn't react that way. And it creates a really interesting dynamic of why we're both so passionate about. And did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think, the yin yang thing is really cool. And I love that we kind of came up with that concept because, whereas Ness will come from like more of a stern, serious, and not always, I'll be talking in the elaborated versions here, but like the more geeky, science-based, factual space. And I come from the performance side. We also recognize to get to where we have today and, being, presenters globally, teaching internationally, we've had to take some from each side. So, we can't always just sit in the jazz hands and the smoke and the mirrors when it comes to teaching group exercise, nor can we always just stick in the science and the fact and the, I'm not going to say boring, but, it could come across that way in a class if you were only
Dry.
Dry sitting in that space. And so we've each had to, steal or borrow from each other's side of the yin yang or the black on the white, whatever you want to look at it, to become an all-rounded instructor and be able to teach other people how to do that. And so it's, it's about, yes, you can come and deliver an amazing performance and give all of the X factor to the show. But if you don't actually know what you're programming, how much recovery is needed, why you're, delivering the exercises that you're delivering, how to deliver them safely, then you're only halfway, that's only going to take you to a certain place. And vice versa, if you've got all the science and all the data and all of the factualness, and you've got that dry ability to deliver all of the science, but you haven't got that personability, that connection, that flavor, that authenticity, then it's not going to work for you either. And so the education we're now bringing together really does that. It's not just how to be a performer and deliver amazing experience. It's not just how to be an amazing programmer and understand how to coach correctly. It's both. It's bringing it both together.
Yeah, and you said something.
And I think I was just going to say, it's interesting that a lot of PTs that we might see who come in who then want to be group X instructors are similar to kind of my side of things. They've done the science, they've done the work, they're really good at the one-on-one. And then people who we see gravitate to group X originally, or maybe initially before they even do one-on-one, are similar to more Emma's kind of realm. And it's not always, it's just a little bit of something that we've kind of noticed. And to be all encompassing, even as a trainer, even if you're only doing small groups, you really do need both. Every part of the science delivery that you will have will be better emphasized and have a deeper meaning if you can deliver it in a creative and fascinating way.
Yeah, brilliant. I was just going to say that real powerful word that Emma, you mentioned is connection. And, what I can see here is that sort of IQ, EQ kind of approach that's been sort of harmonized and, brought into the the space of where people come together, right? Like now, naturally, when you have a group training session, it's people come specially to feed off each other. So it seems that you guys have hit the mark. And what I really further to that kind of have gathered is that it's very collaborative. And what I always encourage coaches to look at is, if you're going to go into any sort of partnership, whatever that may be, is to look at that yin and yang, which is just beautifully said, that those mutual kind of complementary opposites, and look to see what can happen, you know. And I think that whole saying of opposites attract is kind of so real, you know. I was like, is that kind of real, that time, that kind of saying? But it for me, it's just been more and more evident, you know, self-evident at least, and then hearing the stories that the collaboration is a powerful piece. So from that moment, and what I would actually want to ask first, Vanessa, is why did you switch from one-on-one to groups? What was the reasoning behind that and the inspiration, perhaps?
It's really interesting that you say that. I mean, for me, it was the ability to be able to deliver a message to more people. And
Wow.
when you're a trainer on one-on-one, you're limited by your time and your ability to get in front of a certain amount of people. Like, I don't want to do 60 sessions a week. It's really, really tiring. It's very time consuming. And so for you to feel like you're able to deliver a message of what you feel is empowering and what you feel is important to other people, group is the natural progression. And it can be small groups. It might be, I started with 2 or 3, but I always coached groups when I was at Virgin, and it was something that every trainer had to do there, particularly in the early days of kind of Virgin. You had to do it, and I just had an affinity for it because I'd have my performance kind of background, not as intensive as Emma's, but it was there. And so when I kind of did this like back and forth, and now I'm what I would say is like a true hybrid. I still love my one-on-ones, and I love the movement, and I love the rehab, and I love the science behind it. But I break out into the cycle classes that Emma taught me, which I had never taught cycle before Emma taught me, by the way. I hated cycle. And I love it. And I love the message that it can bring people, and how it brings people together as well.
Perfect, well said. And I suppose that there's always been this like delineation, almost like you're either a one-on-one or group. And so
Yeah.
I really like that idea that you can have both, and that there can be this diversification, or you can certainly specialize. So I suppose for the coaches out there, to kind of know the why behind doing your particular program, which we'll get into the nuts and bolts in a moment, is probably going to be crucial, because that will allow the trainer or the coach to go, yep, I'm not going to just be hedged on one-on-one, but I'm going to have, this hybrid model. And in some cases, having that semi-private, which Vanessa, you touched on, that sort of smaller, intimate, more personalized, if you will, approach. And I think what I find fascinating is I knew that there was a gap in group training. And what I want to understand from your perspective is how you guys identified that gap, and what was the inspiration to moving into that space and tackling that gap, if you will,
For me, it was working with studios, working with boutiques. That's the way our industry is going now. We're very much in a boutique world, specialized world. We saw that coming through from the last 10 years in the US, the United Kingdom, and multiple places across Asia and the rest of the world. And it's now happening slowly in Australia. We're seeing more of these boutique style offerings, which means lots of things. It means that the standard has gone up because our expectation has gone up. We want more than just a 24-hour gym with a bog standard trainer and a half average class in stark white lighting and terrible sound conditions. We're now expecting, these beautiful experiences where we walk into a boutique, we're getting an exact product that we've signed up for, and possibly spending 2, 3, 4 times the amount to enter that space. And then we're expecting lots of things because of that. We're expecting very, very high talent of trainer. We're expecting high knowledge of the trainer. We're expecting beautiful facilities. We're expecting amazing lighting, sound, the works. And because of all of those expectations going up and up and up, there's a definite need for talented instructors. And the number one problem I'm finding when I work with these boutique studios is that they can't find talent. And I think that's because we're in a space right now where we haven't been looking for this kind of talent for very long. And PTs are still just working in your 24-hour gyms, your fitness firsts, your bigger size boxes. They're trying to move across to these more boutique studios, but they don't really know how, because like Vanessa said earlier, they've either only ever worked one-on-one, and now say an Orange Theory or a Barry's Boot Camp is asking for a trainer to then come in, be a PT, but be able to control 40 people in this arena where there's lights and sound and metric, and PTs don't know how to do that. So they're either hiring them and they're not doing a very good job, or they're just stuck at a loss to find good talent. Or the third option is they're doing what a lot of the boutiques are doing in the US, and they're hiring on talent. So they're hiring on performance skills, say an ex-performer, an ex-dancer, very much, you know, like the background we've come from. But then those people don't have the knowledge and the skill like a personal trainer would have about anatomy and how to program. And so we just saw this massive gap in the market for training for this quite specific niche that's only going to explode and get bigger within our industry. And so there's a huge gap for both sides of that, you know, that yin yang, the PTs that want to come into group and start delivering world-class experiences to 40 people plus. And then we've got a gap for the performery, kind of more fluffery type humans that are great at their personability, but need that, you know, grit behind them so that they are programming well, and they understand if the programming is being given to them, they still understand why. They still understand why that rest is there, why that exercise is there, you know, rather than just regurgitating words. There's more substance, there's foundation behind it. So yeah, I think there's a huge humongous gap in the market for this style of training, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just having that structure and that system, you've sort of highlighted that, Emma, which is so important to not just run at a whim, you know, these classes. And I've, you know, been a victim of that as well, subject to, you know, kind of willy-nilly programming at one stage, but being able to quantify that and keep that experience and that human touch, I suppose, is probably what we'll get into in a moment. And is there anything else that you guys wanted to elaborate on? I suppose perhaps the philosophy, like what's your philosophy? Because I think that's always a great place to start. We get into the guts of the why. Who wants to go?
Ooh,
Vanessa?
the guts of the why. I think Emma and I are like experience. When we started talking about it, it encompasses a bunch of different words that we both love it. And the thing about the word experience in itself is that it's multifaceted in its meaning. So it can mean an experience like right now that we're having, talking to people who we feel connected with, and it feels great and it's like warm and squishy and you've experienced something together. Okay, so that's one kind of meaning of that word. And then another part of the meaning is that we have experience talking about the things that we are hopefully trying to teach. We have a collective or a collated knowledge of what we're trying to influence other people in. So experience is now two things. And then experience is also something that you can transcend, something that you can influence, something that you can influence over time as well. So it's in the moment, it's every moment, and it's continuous. And I think that that's a really cool way of thinking about an instructor journey, is because both Emma and I would have had moments in our career where we're like, this is amazing, or that was my turning point, or this is the reason why I'm gonna do this. But neither of us got to where we were by just that thing. It's that collective experience that we've had over the years. And we've been lucky enough to have mentors and teachers, and then just try things out ourselves that work and don't necessarily work. And the philosophy of group experience is facilitating a group experience to gain experience. It's kind of poetic. It's really cool.
Yeah, and philosophical. Love it. It's yeah, in the moment, and then multiple moments, and then a journey of moments. It's beautifully said. Yeah, I think it's important, you know, like you guys had a clear why. But I suppose, like, when was that moment where you decided, yep, we're going to do this? Because a lot of people, as we know, like, we sit on ideas, we go, you know, just imagine if we pursued that thing and we could be here. So, you know, like, not being regrettable, right? So what was the penultimate decision to go, right, we're putting this together. You know, what was the fuel? Tell us a little bit more about that. That would be really insightful.
It was like maybe 18 months ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Gosh, time is flying, especially this year. It's a bit confusing to even know what time we're in. And we talked about doing something together for a while, and I think we just had lots of chats about what was missing in the industry. It wasn't like this. It wasn't this huge like long-winded chat though. It really was just like we should make a course. We should actually, we should do this. This is something that's needed. We have the skills, we have the foundations to do it, and the reach of instructors and in the industry. Like that this is stupid. We should actually make one. I think that was kind of it. And then we were like, all right, let's do it. And then there was probably only a slight delay because we're both busy humans and we both live in different states now. I've moved to Queensland. And so the only slight delay on that was getting our butts into gear a little bit. And so we kind of just helped each other with that. Like at one point I flew to Sydney, we did a massive chunk and brainstorm session on it together. And then we did that another one time. And then most recently we were like, right, to actually get this thing done, let's run a beta version. Let's get some feedback. Let's get it submitted so that it's done and dusted. And so knowing both of us, I think we just anchored on the fact that we need kicks up the butt sometimes to do things. We're both, very on or off. We're both very, trying to put all the fingers in all the pies and get everything done. And so we just kind of, because we know each other so well and have known each other so long, I think we knew what it will take to get us to that point. I think if we just were to sit in our respective states and try and chip away by ourselves for long hours, it would never have happened. So luckily we had the insight to be able to kick each other into gear and come up with the final product, which we're super proud of.
Brilliant. What thank you for sharing that. Powerful. What are perhaps a problem or a series of problems that you guys are solving for the aspiring coach or trainer with this program?
That's a really great question. I think there's two problems. I don't think there's one problem, or maybe there's more, but I'm going to simplify it to two. And Em, I'm going to pass you one. I don't even know if you know what I'm going to say yet, but I'm going to pass you one.
Let's bring it.
Yeah. I think the first problem is that we go through Cert 3, Cert 4, and sometimes we don't even go through Cert 3 and Cert 4. And we're then put in charge of a room full of people. And even though we ourselves might be a fitness enthusiast or even a relative expert, being able to convey what's happening in here into coherent, structured words and sentences with great gestures and a really fun environment and all of that, it's like a jigsaw. It's a total jigsaw, and it can be really overwhelming. And I myself, aside from all the performance stuff, which I think Emma's amazing at, I love a process. I like a start and a finish, and this is what you do in the middle. And I think one of the big players is that no one ever gets taught a process of a class. You don't know how to start it, what goes in the middle, and how to end it. Where do I start to put things in? And that's one of the problems that I think that we help to solve, is by creating a process of chunks of things to think about and things to be wary of throughout your entire class. Do you know where I'm leading to with the second one, Em?
Give me a hint.
Well, I was going to say, and then I think it's not only being aware of the process, but then the feedback option.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I was so on that wavelength. I just didn't want to be wrong. That's embarrassing. No, yeah. I think, again, both of us being group exercise managers at one stage, as much as Vanessa didn't like it, we've been a big part of feedback processes over the years. I think coming from Virgin Active, we were extremely lucky, especially in the last few years. They put a really big emphasis on group exercise. I don't think that's been the case in the industry as a whole. I think for my first few years, 10 years ago or so, it was always felt like a bit of a battle to get budget, to get attention, to get like any kind of like, reaction from your manager about group exercise, because they never saw it as a big money maker in the club. I think only recently, people are starting to see that it may not make direct money, but it certainly is a huge retention tool. And we've got the facts and the data on that. People that do group exercise are way more likely to stay at your club as if they don't, and they're left to their own devices. And so slowly but surely that process is being put on back on group exercise again. And so coming from Virgin Active, we were really lucky. We had good feedback processes, and we've both been a part of delivering a lot of that feedback. But I hear time and time again, there is no mentorship, there is no feedback process for instructors. They don't know once they've done their initial training and whatever that might be. So it might be a basic what used to be GEL, so Group X Leader Cert. So they got taught to fundamentally count to 8, understand the basics about music, and then, as Ness said, away they go. There's nothing else there for them to really have any hold on to. And so then they're starting to teach, and if they're very lucky, they're in a club where they may get an assessment once a quarter, if that. But other than that, they're left to their own devices. And we all know that we can't learn, we can't grow, we can't progress in any art form, in any skill, without a feedback process. And what happens is then instructors become really fearful of feedback because they've never received it. So then now they don't really want it because they're like, oh God, someone's judging me. And they can get stuck in, after years in their career, having never really been told what they could do to be better, what they could use to improve upon, what they're doing amazingly. Whereas if a good feedback process is in place and you're seeing somebody maybe monthly and being able to have things to go away and improve upon, then you're only going to get better and better and better and better. And so I think another huge problem that we aim to solve is the course comes with a really detailed feedback process. It isn't just a 2-second questionnaire, tick, you're done. It's a full assessment of a full class with the opportunity to work with us ongoing with a sort of a mentorship program where you can keep delivering and keep receiving feedback to see your growth within that particular program or group exercise as a whole.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You create these series of feedback loops that are before, during, and perhaps after the classes, and that becomes a summation and a way that we're able to modify. And I always encourage that in my own teaching, is that feedback is the breakfast of champions, and that can be done across the board, one-on-one, group. And I think group's a hard one because it's that's why I always encourage, and our timetable reflects that we don't have back-to-back classes. We need 15 minutes because there's a good 5-minute period, say, where you're having chats with members who have that personality or who may be struggling. So I think it's very good advice that, if you're constructing a timetable, and it seems like you guys teach the strong processes with regards to the structure of a class and a series of the programs, that feedback is left, or at least a space to provide and facilitate feedback once the session's over. So really, really keen to jump in and know more. Now, what would I expect, kind of coming in on your program, and how is it delivered, and what are the expectations?
Well, we have a three phase, I guess, course that we decided upon. Obviously, with the current climate, we shall continue to call it, we were pushed a little more into the online space. But there is options in that depending on who we work with. So there's a definite online component, which is around 4 hours of some fundamental education of your basics around mainly cueing and understanding, word choice and communication styles within that space, the real rock foundation pillars to being an instructor. And that's done foundationally online, and around 4 hours worth of learning with a few assessments along the way. And then we have our main chunk, sort of that second phase of learning, which is a full day. And that can be delivered probably primarily at the moment online via Zoom, but it is a live day. It's very interactive. Nobody would be falling asleep, that's for sure. It's actually a lot of fun. We get across a whole heap of content there, looking at not only your cueing skills, but then we go into more depth of coaching, and then we look really in depth at what experience is and how we can manipulate that and create it within our classes. And then that third phase is assessment. So there is a written exam, and then also that really important feedback session where the participant would film themselves delivering a full class, and they get a full detailed feedback of how they can what they took on board and what they've done amazingly, but then how they can still progress and work towards further improvement. As well as that, they're injected into a community where there'll be ongoing support from Vanessa and I and everybody that's been through the course, that will continue to build and create a bit of a community there as well.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. That's most definitely. I've been sort of nagging you both, going, when is it? When is, like a little child, right? So, but we will be obviously once that's launching in sort of October. I understand that sort of period, which, without putting a definitive date. So what I will do, those who are listening, is that I'll post a link when that course is out, and an option and a way that you coaches and trainers can register. And, you know, with what has been shared with us, I feel that it gives good validation, especially for those who are sitting on the fence, perhaps, or who have been doing group classes, you know, without that guidance, without that structure, and who are wanting to really excel in that sort of synergizing and yang of the systems, the experience. I think, you know, I say no more. I mean, you know, again, I know you both, and you're both people of great integrity. You've given so much to this industry, and you continue to do so. We've presented at multiple conferences. So I know the good people that you are. I have no doubt that the quality is going to be superb. And I think the flexibility of the offering, I mean, you know, whether it's the times we live in or not, like to have that option of a virtual live stream, the platform, no doubt the resources that you're going to provide, you know, will make you a better group coach. And certainly with my coaches and my faculty, we're going to be undertaking the program because we want to always be at that top of our game. And this is a real unique subset of skills that I think has been underrated, perhaps by no misgivings of the trainer's own manufacturing. I think it's just something that has been kind of like, as you both have put it, you know, you come out maybe at Cert 3, or if you come out with Cert 3 or 4, and, you know, you might have a sporting background, so you run in and there you are teaching the classes. But as you said, Vanessa, it requires a lot more dynamism and being present. And I think that for both of you, I see that being present in that moment when you're teaching, and allowing the clients to, the members, if you will, to have this transcendent experience. Because I've been fortunate enough to teach many classes, and I always want to learn, right? So I'm hungry to learn how to better run a class. Are there any final thoughts that you guys want to share with those listening? Any words of wisdom that you want to impart? Obviously, go join the course, but is there anything that you guys would like to share on from what you've been sharing with us to this point?
Maybe just like, don't underestimate the importance of experience. I know we've spoke about it so passionately today, and you may be thinking, but what does that really mean? You know, the power that we have in a class, not just to get people fitter or, you know, healthier humans, but actually to affect them mentally, and actually, you know, put them into a positive mindset to be able to start changing some of those neural pathways that create, you know, genuinely better people, you know, better outlooks on life, better ways of handling things outside of the studio, outside of the class with you is huge. You know, you actually have the power to create that with the word choice that you use, with the environment that you create, with the journey that you take them on within your group environment. And it's not fluffy, it's not new age, it just genuinely is the power that you have by the creation that you know put together within that experience that you can create with your group exercise class. And so it's the future of fitness. It's absolutely where the industry is going. And if you're not willing to create that experience and make people feel that way after they leave your class, then there's a really good chance that you get left behind.
Yeah, totally. Appreciate that, Emma. Totally. Vanessa, any final word or words of wisdom?
All right, I'm all over what Em said. It's perfect. It's exactly that. I think the moment that it really struck home to me is the person who has the most influence. They're able to reach the most amount of people. You know, if you're a PT and you change one person's life, that's amazing. You've done an amazing job. How cool is it to say that you've done that for 60 people in a room, and you can do that continuously week in, week out. And you might have had someone in there who's done terrible, like who's had terrible experiences before, and you can change their mind. Group exercise is where you're going to find those people, because they're the ones hiding in the corner, not willing and not ready yet to be a part of personal training because they're too intimidated and they're too scared to join in. And so you can be the one who really influences that change and starts their journey with a trainer, because now all of a sudden they're ready to get there. And I think people completely underestimate the value of that influence that a group exercise instructor has.
Yeah, totally. And that piece of community that gives each person the courage and the continuity to kind of keep on going. I really appreciate both of you, Vanessa, Leone and Emma Masters, for coming on the High Performers interviews. You're going to be seeing and hearing much more about both and their group experience program. And I will be sharing the link and all of the information very soon. So I know there's sort of anticipation here, but we are looking forward to it. And we do really appreciate you both. And until next time, you both keep well, and looking forward to hearing some feedback from those listeners.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.